welcome to my channel Pediatric Classes. Today we will discuss the part 2 of ECG made easy. In the part 1 we had discussed about the electrical activities happening in the heart, the conductive system, the various electrical vectors and the various waves and segments of ECG. As a quick recap, I will just let you know about the different waves and segments of ECG. So first is the P wave. P wave is because of atrial depolarization. Then comes our QRS segment. The Q is because of septal depolarization. R is because of the major ventricular depolarization. And S is because of the basal ventricular depolarization. T wave is because of ventricular repolarization. And about the U wave, that is because of the electrical activities happening in the papillary muscles. All this we had discussed in detail in the previous video. Now, this is what you know about it. So, what is the PR segment? PR segment is the distance between the P wave and the R wave. We have another one segment, that is the ST, that is from the start of S to the start of Then we have the ST segment, that is from S and up to the T, the start of T wave. That's a small ST segment. We also have an isoelectric segment, that is called the TP segment. Okay, so these are the segments which we had discussed earlier. We also have a few intervals. Interval will include I for I. Remember, interval will include both sides. So PR interval means it will include both the P waves. It will be like this. Okay. So this is the PR interval. PR interval includes the P wave and also the PRS segment. That means it makes us understand the time taken for an impulse to start from the atria and reach the ventricles. So this is the PR segment. Okay. We also have one important segment, that is a QT segment from here to here. That means it includes QRS, the complex, then ST segment and the T wave. So that includes both ventricular depolarization and also the repolarization. So coming to how to interpret an ECG. Now let us discuss in short about the ECG paper. You have to know very clearly what is an ECG paper. You will see lots of vertical lines like this, lots of horizontal lines like this. Okay. So once you actually see carefully, this ECG machine is calibrated in such a way that it will move around 300 big boxes in 1 minute. So 300 big boxes in 1 minute means in 60 seconds 300 boxes. So 5 big boxes will move in 1 second. That means 300 in 1 minute means 300 boxes in 60 seconds, which is like 5. So 5 big boxes in 1 second. 0.1 by 5. Okay, it is 0.2 seconds. So this in 0.2 seconds, the ECG paper will move 1 big box. So but once you actually see the big box properly, we can see there are lots of vertical line like this, dividing a big box. So there are 5 boxes on the lower side. So one small box is covered in 0.2 divided by 5. That is 0.04 second. So for all practical purposes now on, we should remember that one big box is covered in 0.2 seconds, or rather one big box is equivalent to 0.2 second. One small box is one very small box out here, it is equivalent to 0.04 second. This is very important when you actually have to calculate the duration of the PR interval or the QT segment, etc. Now, a bit into the details of the naming of QRS complex is very important. Here I have written like small q, big R and small s. So it is dependent upon the subjective small. It is depending on the size of the Q wave or the R wave. So it is almost very subjective, but small means use the lower case, that is the small letter q, and bigger waves you use the big Q or the capital Q. Okay. So if you see here, the Q is small. So we have put it as small q, big R and capital R and small s. So once you, what is this wave out here? The Q is deep, so I put a capital Q, a small r and a small s. Coming to the interpretation out here, what can it be? So coming to the interpretation out here, it can be a small q, tall r and an s, capital S. So it is small q, capital R and capital S I have put. Then what is this? Is a very small q, capital R and then small s, small letter s. And this is what the only positive deflection is there. So that is an R wave. Here you should remember that the first positive deflection after you see is the R wave. And the negative deflection before R wave is the Q wave, and the negative deflection after the R wave is the S wave. So here if you see the first positive deflection is taken as R wave, we have an R wave here. After the R wave there is a negative deflection, so there is an S wave. The deflection is small, so I have written the lowercase s and another R wave. So this is labeled by a dash. So we have an R, S, R dash pattern. Here again you should note that if the R is a small, you write small r, s and small r dash. So once if you get an idea about the size, once you hear this, you will get an idea. If someone is talking over phone and telling you, we have a capital S, small s, capital R dash, you get the waveform even without seeing the real ECG. So we have to be very clear about the nomenclature of this QRS complex. So let me ask you, what is this when there is only a negative deflection? Yes, here you cannot differentiate whether it is a Q wave or an S wave, because we need an R wave to say whether it is a Q wave or S wave. Any negative deflection before the R wave is taken as Q wave, and any negative deflection after the R wave is taken as S wave. Here the deflection is come like this, so the thing is taken together as QS complex. So this is in short about the nomenclature of QRS complexes. Now let us discuss about the leads of the ECG. We have already discussed a bit in the previous section. We have chest leads and we have also limb leads. The limb leads are 1, 2 and 3. The limb lead 1 is from right arm to the left arm. So the arrow is like this, and this is taken as a 0. So if you take an hexaxis system, if we are going to draw the system like this to know the axis and all. So from RA to LA it is a lead 1, lead 2 and lead 3. Okay, the lead 2 and the lead 3 are also inferior leads. Now these are the limb leads. Limb leads measure the electrical activity of the heart in the vertical plane. Now what about the horizontal plane? Electrical activity of the heart in the horizontal plane is measured by our chest leads, that is from V1 to V6. The position of it we have already discussed in the previous section. Now we also have augmented limb leads. We have an ABF, ABR and AVF. Okay, ABF is directed downwards. So this is our ABF. We have a ABR and an AVL. So the leads can be divided into inferior leads, lateral leads and anterior leads and also septal leads. Okay, so inferior leads, as you can see from here, it is lead 2, lead 3 and ABF. So lead 2, lead 3 and ABF takes care of the inferior wall. Suppose this is very important when you actually want to see where is the pathology. Suppose you get an SC segment elevation in the lead 2, lead 3 and ABF, you can be reasonably sure that it is an inferior wall MI. So what are the leads? It will get us an idea about the lateral view of the heart. So lateral leads or the lateral view of the heart is received from lead 1, AVL, V5 and V6. Right ventricle by lead V1, V2, septum by V3, V4, the left ventricle by the V5 and V6. Coming to the anterior leads, it is taken by V1, V2 and septal by V3, V4. But most of the time these are taken together as androseptal leads. If you get any pathology in V1, V2, V3 and V4, we take it as androseptal problem. Okay, if it is an MI happening, it is androseptal MI. So this is about the leads thing. Having an extensive anterior wall MI means all the leads will have changes. The extensive androlateral MI means V1 to V6 also will have changes, and we also will have changes in the lateral leads of lead 1 and AVL. Suppose it is an inferolateral MI, where all changes will happen. So inferior leads are by lead 2, lead 3, AVF plus all the lateral leads, that is AVL, lead 1, V5 to V6. So there is actually a mnemonic for which we can remember this. That is, a person has 2 to 3 foot. So it is lead 2, lead 3 and AVF. Another one which was as one hand has 5 to 6 fingers. You remember like that. So one hand, so lead 1, 5 to 6, V5, V6 and hand is lateral side. So ABL. So this is about inferior and this is how we can remember the leads where it is actually placed. Whenever you get an ECG paper, it should be written, mostly in the below, it should be written how is the calibration speed. It is 25 millimeter per second. That means if you actually see it, that crosses around 5 big boxes. Or in other way you can say 300 millimeter in a minute. That is same as 25 millimeter per second. See here, this ECG paper has big box and also small box. Each big box is equivalent to 0.2 seconds. This small box is equivalent to 0.04 seconds. For all practical purposes, this is to be learned very well. That is, big box is equivalent to 0.2 seconds and small box is equivalent to 0.04 seconds. Now, we also have to see how is the voltage calibration. If you see any ECG paper, first you will see one square box like this. This shows that is calibrated in such a way that 10 millimeter is equivalent to 1 millivolt. See here, it is 10 millimeter is equal to 1 millivolt. Two things you have to make sure before reading an ECG is, one, whether it is standardized in such a way that 10 millimeter is equal to 1 millivolt. And another thing you have to note is about the speed of it, that is 25 millimeter per second. Most of the ECGs are calibrated at the speed 25 millimeter per second and also 10 millimeter, that means 2 big box is equal to 1 millivolt. You just have to see that square box covers 2 big boxes. Okay. But before that, then what we should know? We should know what is the normal ECG in detail. So what is the normal ECG? We have some waves. So what is a P wave? We already discussed P wave is because of atrial depolarization. Where all we should go and see for the P wave? P wave is mostly seen in lead 2 and lead 1. Try to interpret the P wave in lead 2 and lead 1 because it is best seen out there. Please remember, P wave is positive in most of the leads except AVR. In AVR, the P wave is negative. Because you know septal depolarization, it is because of atrial depolarization, vector is down, AVR is directed in the opposite direction. So AVR will have a negative vector, normally P wave, negative P, but most of the leads will have a positive P wave. Okay, so now what is this normal P? What is the duration and what is the amplitude? Okay, duration, remember P wave is around 2 to 3 small boxes. So 2 to 3 means one small box is 1 millimeter. Okay, so that means a normal P wave will have a duration of 2.5 small boxes. Okay, that means 2.5 millimeter. Voltage or height also it will be around 2.5 millimeter. Okay, so remember it will be a very small wave like this, which will have a height of 2.5 or 2 to 3 small boxes, and also the width also will be 2 to 3 small boxes. But in certain pathological conditions like P pulmonale, P wave may cross more than 3 small squares. And certain pathological conditions like this is seen in case of P pulmonale, that is in case of right atrial enlargement, as in case of COPDs. What is this? This is a widened P wave. Widened P wave means the P wave normally it will cover 2.5 squares, but this will crossing more than 3 squares, more than 3 small squares. This is seen in case of left atrial enlargement. Even you may get a bifid pattern, a bifid P wave, also an M-type wave. So M-type wave is this. There is a P mitral seen in case of mitral stenosis, again because of left atrial enlargement. What is bifid P wave? There will be a small positive segment and a small negative segment there. Again seen in case of left atrial enlargement. So I hope you are clear with the P wave. Just remember 2.5 millimeter is the height and the width of P wave, and also that this P wave is more better to be assessed in case of lead 2 and V1, and most of the leads is positive except AVR. Suppose you get negative P wave in other leads other than AVR, what should we suspect? We should suspect either it is incorrectly placed chest leads or is it because of dextrocardia. Suppose you get variable P waves throughout the ECG, then suspect a wandering pacemaker. You get multiple P waves, okay, then we have to suspect a AV block. So this is in short about the P wave. Now we have to know about our PR segment. PR segment is the time duration during which the conduction occurs across the AV node. It will also cross for around 2 to 3 small squares. Remember again 2.5 small squares. Now you come to the main thing, that is the PR interval. So what is the PR interval? PR interval comprises of the P wave and the PR segment. So that we have to know very clearly. The normal value is 0.12 to 0.2. As in children we say 0.12 to 0.16. Adolescent it is 0.12 to 0.18. For adults it is 0.12 to 0.2 seconds. That means 0.12 means 1 small square is 0.04. So it is around 3 small squares, 3 to 5 small squares, if you want to remember like that. So P wave is around 2 to 3 small squares, PR segment is 2 to 3 small squares. So PR interval is around 3 to 5 small squares, or just remember 0.12 to 0.2 seconds. If it is more than 0.12 seconds, it is a long PR. Is suspect an AV block. Short PR means it is less than 0.1 second. So this is in short about the P wave, the PR segment and the PR interval. Now discuss about the Q wave. You can see the complex QRS, that is comprising a small q due to septal depolarization, big R due to major ventricular depolarization, and big S, small s because of the basal ventricular depolarization. Q wave, if you see, it is very small. See, the width, if you see, it is around 1 millimeter. If you just draw like this, width is 1 millimeter and the depth is around 2 millimeter or 2 small squares. That is normal. If it is beyond 1 millimeter width or beyond 2 millimeter deep, in more than one lead, it is taken to be pathological. It will be seen in case of lead 1, lead 2, AVF, and also V5 to V5 and V6. The normal Q wave, a normal Q wave is around 1 millimeter wide and also 2 millimeter deep, not more than that. So such waves can be seen in case of lead 1, lead 2, AVF, and V5 to V6. Another one important point about a normal Q wave is, this Q wave, if you see, it will be less than 1/4 of the height of the R wave. In case of pathological Q wave, it will be more than 1 millimeter wide or more than 2 millimeter deep. If the height, that variation, the proportion to the R wave, that will be lost. And so seen in so many conditions like MI. It will be seen in case of RVH, LVH, left bundle branch block, etc. It is also seen in case of cardiomyopathies. And very important one meet and aspirant question is, if you see a pathological Q wave in lead 3, I told normally seen in, not seen in lead 3, but if you see a pathological Q wave in lead 3, please suspect pulmonary embolism. This is called as S1 Q3 T3 syndrome. That means you get a DPS in lead 1, a Q in lead 3, and a T in lead 3. Again, suspect pulmonary embolism. Coming to the R wave is because of when major ventricular depolarization. If you see from here, it just goes up fast and comes down. So the duration is very less. It is actually less than 0.01 second. So, and that is really short. What we have to note here is, R wave is generally small in case of lead V1 and V2. As we progress across from left side of the body, as the leads go from V1 to V6, what happens? There is a progressive increase in the size of the R wave. This is called R wave progression. That is a normal finding, okay? R wave progression. That means R is small in V1, V2, and as because more be taller as it leads move from V1 to V6. That means small in V1, V2 and tall in V5 and V6. That is called R wave progression. You please note the normal values of an R wave. R wave in ABC in case of AVL, AVR and only V5 and V6. So remember AVL, AVR and V5, V6. R wave is normally less than 30 mm in AVL, less than 20 mm in AVR and less than 25 mm in V5 and V6. This becomes important when you want to know what is happening in case of an RVH or in case of an LVH. So the R wave is because of ventricular depolarization. So we have a big ventricle, that is in case of RVH or LVH, we may get a tall R wave. It only depends on the where you get it. If you get a tall R wave in you might need to suspect RVH. And you get a very tall R wave in the V5, V6, AVL and all, you have to consider the diagnosis of LVH. Suppose we get a very small R wave, that may be because of incorrect calibration, it may be because of obesity, pericardial effusion, hypothyroidism, etc. Now let us discuss about S wave. S wave is because of the basal ventricular depolarization. So it is in the negative direction. S wave is normally less than 1/3 of the R wave. I told you Q wave is less than 1/4 of the R wave normally. This S wave is less than 1/3 of the R wave. So what happens here? What is R wave progression we learned? R wave progression is lead V1, V2 will have small R wave and V5, V6 and all will have tall R waves. Whereas in case of S waves, S wave will be taller in V1, V2 and as the leads progresses, the size of the chest leads will become shorter. So V5, V6 will have small S waves. Now ask if you see the QRS complex. What is QRS complex in short? It is because of the ventricular depolarization. It is all positive in the leads facing toward the heart from the lateral side or from the left side. So that means in lead 2, AVL, AVF, V5, V6 all will have positive QRS. That is predominantly positive. If you see this one, it is predominantly positive. That means if you actually calculate this, the amplitude, if you calculate R and S and all this, the predominant thing will be a positive. So now this becomes important when we want to assess the axis. So how will you know the axis? So what is it? The whole duration of the QRS will be again less than 3 small squares. So as a recap, P wave is around 2.5 small squares. That means 2 to 3. Okay, you can remember 2.5. This will again 2 to 3 small squares. Again this QRS is also less than 3 small squares. So if it is more than 3 squares, we have to suspect wide QRS. When wide QRS is seen in many conditions, like for example, bundle branch block, we get in ventricular tachycardia, Torsades D pointers, WBW syndrome, etc. So for when you get an ECG in an MCQ, when you are seeing this, please see how many boxes it covers for ease of answering the question. See whether the QRS is wide or not. Just see if you calculate from here to here, it should not cross more than 3 small squares if it is a normal QRS. Okay. Now let us see how to calculate the axis. There are various ways of calculating the axis. What I follow, I will tell you. Remember, this is lead 1 and this is AVL. So this side is positive, this side is positive. Again this has to be negative and this side is negative. Suppose you see only 2 leads, lead 1 and AVL. If QRS is positive in lead 1 and also positive in lead AVL, it is in this quadrant. The normal axis of the heart is from -30 to +90. All this area is normal axis. So suppose you see the lead lead 1 and AVF and the QRS is positive in lead 1 and positive in AVF. The axis is in the normal range. Okay. Suppose the axis is negative in lead 1 and positive in AVF. This is more to this side. So this is a right axis deviation. Suppose it is positive in lead 1 and negative in AVF, it is left axis deviation. Suppose QRS is negative in lead 1 and AVF, it is extreme axis deviation. So this will give you an idea about what is the approximate axis. Okay, there are different ways of calculating axis. Just for ease of understanding, just remember lead 1 and AVF. You get the positive in lead 1 and the positive in AVF, that is in the normal axis. Lead 1 negative, AVF positive, right axis deviation. Lead 1 positive, AVF negative, left axis deviation. Both are in the negative axis negative. It's an extreme axis. Coming to the ST segment. This is our ST segment. Okay, from the end of S wave to the start of the T wave. That is the ST segment. Sorry for the voice disturbance. Actually, it's heavy rain going on here. That's why. Sorry. Okay, and ST segment very important because we want to know whether it is elevated, depressed, normal, etc. ST elevation is normal up to 1 mm in limb leads and up to 2 mm in chest leads. So suppose you get 2 mm means 2 small squares. If you get a small 2 mm arise in V1 to V6, don't take it as pathological actually. It is normal up to 2 mm in chest leads actually. Okay, up to 1 mm in limb leads also is normal. So what is this ST segment elevation and all? If you get an elevation more than 2 mm in the chest leads, okay, then that is a pathological ST elevation. So where do we get ST elevation? We get ST elevation in MI. Which all part of the heart is getting affected in the MI? To understand that only, we were actually discussing some time back about different leads taking care of different parts of the heart. Suppose you get an ST segment elevation lead 2, lead 3 AVF, it is an inferior wall MI. Suppose you get an ST elevation in lead 1 AVL, V5 and V6, it is a lateral wall MI. ST is also elevated in certain conditions called pericarditis. So what happens in ST MI? What happens is we get this ST will be convexity up. So if you see the pericarditis, what happens is we may get a small PR depression. ST will be elevated, but you see with the concavity upwards. Okay, two conditions in MI, it will be convexity upwards. ST segment depression may be seen in cases of ischemia, ventricular hypertrophy with strain, digoxin toxicity, etc. Now coming to the T wave. T wave is because of ventricular repolarization. How much will be the height of a normal T wave? T wave will normally be more than 2 mm in height. It is not more than 5 mm in limb leads and not more than 10 mm in the chest leads. One important question we can expect here is about the peak T waves. As you know, it is seen in case of hyperkalemia. We get a small T wave in case of hypokalemia, hypothyroidism, pericardial effusion, etc. So T wave is actually, when you get an ECG for exam and you see a tall peak T wave, remember it can be a metabolic disorder like a hyperkalemia. Coming to the U wave is because of repolarization happening in the papillary muscle. Normally it will be around 1 mm. The height will be around 1 mm. Best seen leads will be V2 to V4. What are the conditions where we get an inverted U? It is seen in case of left ventricular hypertrophies and also in case of ischemic heart disease. Then where you will get a prominent U. Means generally U is around 1 mm only, so you get a prominent U. In certain normal individuals you may see prominent U waves, but the pathological condition associated with prominent U waves include hypokalemia, hypercalcemia, that is calcium is more, hypercalcemia, hyperthyroidism, bradycardia, etc. So what is the QT? I mentioned earlier that includes the QRS complex, the ST segment and the T wave. Okay. Normally this QT will be less than half of the RR interval. RR interval means from one R wave to the next R. That is the RR interval. Normally this QT will be less than half of the RR interval. So there are certain conditions we get a prolonged QT. So how much is the normal QT interval? Normal QT, just remember it is around 10 to 11 small boxes. 10 to 11 small box means 10 into 0.04. One small box is 0.04 seconds. So it is, if you actually calculate, 0.4 to 0.44 seconds. So it is around 10 to 11 small boxes. So that is actually a normal QT interval. The QT interval varies with heart rate. It decreases as the heart rate increases and other way around. QTC or corrected QT interval, that is QT divided by root of RR. What is this RR? RR means that is the RR interval, that is from one R wave to the another R wave. Just calculate the number of small boxes. Okay. So if there is 20 small boxes, there is 20 small boxes are there. RR interval is, one small box is 0.04. So 0.04 into 20 in milliseconds only we should calculate and put it as a RR interval. So QTC is equal to QT divided by root of RR. There are certain conditions where we get a long QT and there are certain conditions where we get a short QT. So here are the conditions. When you get a short QT, see, there is hypercalcemia, hyperthermia, tachycardia, and also because of the digoxin effect. Whereas long QT is very important. Long QT, all the opposite side you can write here. Hypocalcemia, because calcium stops the heart in systole. Likewise, remember, hypercalcemia, heart is going to stop. So QT has to be prolonged only. So I used to remember. So hypocalcemia, hypothermia, bradycardia, MI, myocarditis, HOCM, certain drugs like flecainide, procainamide, etc. So this is in short about our QT, long QT, short QT, etc. Please keep making notes and keep revising. So now let us come back to our interpretation of ECG. So first we have discussed that we have to make sure that it is standardized. That is, ECG paper moves at around 25 mm per second. There is a calibration. This is a small square thing which shows that 10 mm is equal to 1 millivolt. So two things are done. Now how are you going to assess? First thing is we have to find out the rate. How will you calculate the rate? For that, this is from RR interval. Okay, if the rate is regular, what we do is, there is one formula called 1500 divided by the number of small boxes, or 300 divided by number of big boxes. Between this, how many big boxes are there? So 300 divided by, suppose there are only 5 big boxes, 300 divided by 5, it is 60 beats per minute. Okay, if it is a regular rhythm. Suppose the rhythm is irregular, what happens? We cannot do this because it keeps on changing the RR interval. So what we do is, you calculate the number of QRS, so the R waves, in 6 seconds, that is 30 big boxes, and multiply by 10 to get the answer. If the heart rate is really fast, there is yet another alternative. We can calculate the R waves in 6 large division and multiply by 50. So there are umpteen number of ways. Once the rhythm is regular, once the rhythm is irregular, once the heart rate is really fast. So now we have found out the rate. Now we have to find out how is the rhythm. Rhythm can be regular or it can be irregular. So how will you calculate the rhythm? The best thing to do is, take a small bit of paper. How to calculate the rhythm? So we want to know whether it is regular or not. So we can take a rhythm strip. Normally lead 2 is taken as a rhythm strip. So suppose this is a lead 2 which is happening. So what happens is, you can just put a paper like this and mark the RR. So and then keep it other way also, and keep on, and we keep on seeing whether the RR interval remains the same. This is a very easier way to take a paper, make 2 markings like this, put it in the next RR, put it in the next RR. If the thing is coming regularly, so it is a regular rhythm, and if there is a P wave preceding every QRS, then we can be sure that this patient is in sinus rhythm. Now let us discuss about regularly irregular rhythm and irregularly irregular rhythm. Medical undergraduates, NEET aspirants, all please know this very carefully because many questions can be asked here. Regularly irregular is seen in case of physiologically sinus arrhythmias, then pathological conditions like second degree heart block, sinoatrial block, ectopic beats, etc. Whereas you get an irregularly irregular rhythm in case of atrial fibrillations, atrial flutter, atrial tachycardia with block, and also in ventricular fibrillations. So in this session we have discussed in detail about the individual components of the normal ECG and how to go on with the interpretation of ECG. So the method says, like, first we have to make sure whether the ECG paper is standardized properly. Then individual component, right? We have to find out using different formulas. Then we have to find out the rhythm, whether the rhythm is regular or an irregular rhythm. Then we have to closely the P wave, the PR segment, the QRS, whether it is normal, whether it is the axis. We have to find out about the QRS. Then we have to find out whether the amplitude is normal or whether it is very high. About the ST segment, whether it is elevated, whether it is depressed. We have to find out the T wave, whether it is a normal T wave or whether it is a prominent T, as is seen in case of hyperkalemia. And then we have to go and see about the U wave, whether it is prominent U wave or it's an inverted U wave or it's a normal U wave. And don't forget to calculate the QTC. So once you do this in a systematic manner, you may not miss out anything. Okay? Thank you.